To the Board of Directors, United States Department of Agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mr. Muteti and welcome to my presentation. I'm going to talk about labeling genetically modified foods. This is the outline of the presentation. I will introduce the thesis statement, do the introduction of the presentation, cover research findings, do the analysis, then recommendation, references, and then I will end with the conclusions remarks. So the question has been, should genetically modified food be labeled for consumer to make an informed decision? Because it has come to the attention of many that many people are purchasing food out there in the market without knowing that if these foods have genetically been modified. And it is important for consumer to have right access to the right information. So it is consumers' right to know what they are eating and what type of food is it. So according to statistics in the year 2014, 94% of corn and 93% of the soya beans of the US productions were genetically modified. Okay, now that puts a big question mark. Did the consumers know about this? Now, then consumers need to know more about genetically modified food for their buying decision. Then what could be the benefits? We will also cover what could be the benefits of producing genetically modified foods. From the research finding done by Food and Water Watch, it has been established that there is been misleading information on food in the market, and especially GMO food. Many people are buying food thinking that these are traditionally produced food, only for their shock to come to find out that this has been genetically modified food. Also, 90% of the Americans prefer the labeling of genetically modified food. And this has not been the case because in the US, labeling of the genetically modified food is done voluntarily. So many people are selling food out there without labeling them, and this is genetically modified food. So then, another shocking information that has been covered is that the Grocery Manufacturers Association, every year they spend millions of dollars campaigning against labeling of genetically modified food for their own good known reason that they do not want consumers to have the right information. Now, across the world, there's only 6 countries that do require the labeling of genetically modified food. And this is Japan, Australia, Brazil, Russia, China, and South Africa. Of course, US is not one of them. Now let us look at some of the analysis that we have able to establish from the genetically modified products. Now on this diagram on the left hand side is the normal or traditional grown chick that has grown only for 68 days. That is 2 months and a half. Then here we have a month and a half chick that is double size of the 2 months and a half chick. So why? Because this one has been fed genetically modified products, and that's the reason it has outgrown the other one by 2 times. Now, we have to understand we are what we eat. Even as when we consume these products, that is how our bodies will grow. Also to the fruits, on the berry you can see genetically modified berry and naturally grown berry, also with other types of fruits. Also, even on the dairy farming, animals that are fed genetically modified foods tend to be much large in shape and tend, of course, to have a high yield of production. But then you have to know, even as when we consume these foods, we will also wear the same shape like these animals or the foods they eat. So here is the normal grass-fed animal, and here is the growth hormones, antibiotics, and corn-fed that have been genetically modified. And of course, you'll ask yourself, when you walk in the shopping malls and in the streets and any other social gathering places in the US, you'll see a lot of Americans. They are big in body size and they are somehow huge in size. as compared, like maybe in contrast with people from other parts of the world, and especially in Africa, where you find people are very slim and very small in size. Why? Because people here in the US, they feed on genetically modified foods, and that they tend to be as huge as the animals or the food they consume. So from the research finding also, we were able to identify the biggest GMO lovers. And of course, the United States is the biggest country for growing genetically modified food. They grow about 70 million hectares of genetically modified foods, followed of course down there by Brazil, Argentina, Canada, and India. And of course, when we looked at the countries that regulate the labeling of genetically modified food, US does not regulate. So our plea is, why can't the regulating authorities take initiative to enable the people selling food to label it as genetically modified? Because consumers have the right to the right information. Okay. So we come also to another research finding. Consumers' sentiments towards genetically modified food is that a huge number of consumers do not like genetically modified food. They have a negative attitude. That is at almost 60%, as compared to only 8% they have a positive attitude. And one downside of consuming genetically modified food is that they have been on the leading side of causing cancer across the United States. Okay, many a times you'll hear somebody has the intestines cancer, lungs cancer, and of course cancer associated with internal body organs. Why? Because people are consuming a lot of deadly chemicals that have been grown in the crops or the types of meat they consume, milk, cheese, all this type of food they consume. And this has been a huge negative effect towards many people's health. Okay, now having looked at that, let us look at some of benefits of consuming genetically modified food. Is that this food the benefits of GMO products are adapting to changing climate. Okay, they can be able to adapt to the rapid changing climate. They are able to have high yield, as you have seen the cow that has been fed genetically modified food. It has huge bladder, of course, which will lead to huge production of milk as compared to the traditional cow. They also tend to have resistance to diseases and pests, low labor cost, of course, given that these foods are grown with chemicals. We do not need a lot of labor tendering, especially for crops, so they will not have a lot of labor cost. And then that will lead to lower pricing, because low cost of production will lead to low pricing in the market. And of course, they come in large varieties because there have been a lot of technology applied in growing and coming up with the product. So of course, these are some of the good side, but at the end of the day, either for the good or bad, consumers need to have information, and this information starts by labeling genetically modified food when this food has been taken to the market. Also, consumers need to have the access to the information how genetically modified food is grown. Also, the United States Department of Agriculture needs to regulate the production and selling of genetically modified products. All right, these are the references from the findings. So also, to the conclusion, we would like to leave with this conclusion that labeling of genetically modified products will empower the consumer with the buying information. Consumer has the right to the information. Nobody should be denied the information they need. And also the US government and the regulating bodies have the right, as the legal responsibility to regulate the selling of the GMO products. Okay, to end my presentation, I would like to leave with this wise quote from a gentleman that Americans don't know if the food they eat has been genetically modified. People have the right to know, and to know what they are eating. Close the quote. So it is important for the American people to know what kind of food they eat for their own health safety. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and thank you for your time. Bye.